We're just going to confirm that it's running, Denny, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Through the chair, we are live.
All right, good. Good morning. We'll get started with this morning's agenda. Before we start, we just need to do some appointments. So I'm just going to make a motion to appoint Sarah Goldrup and Christian Hilborn as acting secretary treasurers for the committee. Can I have a second on that, please?
I'll second.
Bob? Okay, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. There we go. Okay, so first thing on the agenda is unfinished business, and it's application A 2021-52 at 74 Chestnut Street.
Yes, hi, I'm Annette Higgins, Ray's wife. He couldn't be on the meeting today, I'm afraid.
Okay, all right. Staff is recommending, they'd recommend approval and then a refusal, but I noticed that I guess we're going to discuss the refusal part. Your application's been amended, and I just want to acknowledge that you're in agreement to that amendment.
Yes, I think that was the last one that Ray sent in. I don't know
Yeah.
why you can't see me. I'm new to the Zoom stuff, so.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay,
There is but we did receive this morning a revision for the carport.
right.
I guess you'll want to address that would be then in response to their recommended approval. And I do note that traffic did not have a problem with this. So what we'll do is the other thing that just before I turn it over to you to speak about your letter sent in this morning, paragraph 2 under the approval on the second, under the approval, it says a building permit shall be obtained. And I think probably what we'll want to do is either remove that in its entirety, or it should be at least just changed to applied for.
Oh, thank you. That was one of our concerns with the January 1st, with everything with COVID, things have gotten so delayed.
The building department's extremely far behind. I'm personally aware of that. So trying to meet these deadlines could be difficult at best. And I believe everyone knows they can't proceed with anything without a building permit anyways. So
Right.
I disagree, Mr. Chair. I've seen 2 or 3 examples recently where people have gone ahead and done something and had to go and get a building permit afterwards. It does happen rarely, but it does.
Right. Okay. So anyways, I just want to make note of that so we don't miss it at the tail end when we go through the deliberations here. So if you'd like to maybe just walk us through your latest submission for the carport.
All right. We did make, as you probably know, the change from, we wanted originally the carport next to the house for grandparents, and because we don't have much of a backyard, we thought, oh, that would be a carport area that we could use with the grandchildren. In order to go ahead with this project, we're happy to switch it around so the garage is closer to the house and the carport on the far side. I know that Cheryl, the planner, had some issues with how that would be perceived from our neighbor. We've had several discussions with him. I believe he was sending you in an email to indicate his approval. We have a little Mini Cooper, which is what we are proposing, that we actually decrease the length of the carport in order to satisfy more closely satisfy being the distance from Mansion Street, just so we basically have a little place to put our Mini. And
Right.
Our neighbor seemed to be fine with it when we spoke again with him yesterday.
Yeah, we did receive an email from, would that been Brian Marshall?
Byron? Yeah,
Yeah.
Byron. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, we did receive that, and he did indicate that as long as it was as explained to him, which it appears from the drawing that it is, that he's satisfied with that. So,
Okay.
okay,
Do you need more information from me?
I don't think so at this time. Scott? You have a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just had a question for the applicant and or staff. I'd be
very happy to approve the modified drawing, but the way I'm looking at it, it looks like the modified carport goes pretty much right back to the, I'm going to call it the westerly lot line. If that were to maintain the 0.6 meter setback, which I think is the requirement, I would have no problems. The original drawing was 0.6 from both rear and side.
Right.
It looks like the overhang is right back to the rear lot line, but it's confusing. So if somebody could clarify that.
And unfortunately, my husband who did the drawing isn't here to clarify. If you do have further questions, his comment would be if we could at least have approval to go ahead with the garage and defer on the carport, we'd be very happy with that decision today.
Okay. Just
Anything else?
hoping that the other committee members seeing the same thing that I'm looking at.
Yep.
There's two lines there. One kind of shows it stopping. I think that was from the original drawing, and the one shows it kind of overhanging right to the back lot line.
They're very close to it anyways, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
if it were to maintain the 0.6, I would be very happy to support the modified drawing. But we don't know that yet, so.
Scott, if I could get Ray to contact you today with that information, would that be fine? Or to the committee, I should say?
We have to deal with this now.
Right now, okay. Could we defer on that then?
Bob?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'm going to make a quick comment and then I have a question. I think that this has been quite an innovative way. We were quite upset with it last month, and this has been an innovative way how to solve almost all of the problems. I too would like more information from staff as to why the carport portion of this application is being refused, because I don't see a big problem with it.
I think it was being refused. This was before this change. Cheryl, you had your hand up. Where'd you go?
You chair, sorry about that. I'm
That's
muted.
all right. No problem.
I did want to clarify the drawing to make sure I'm understanding them well compared to what the email the neighbor sent in. So the
Right.
drawing, the updated drawing that I received this morning shows the carport, doesn't indicate the distance to the carport roof. And I think that's the concern of the neighbor, because he does say if the carport roof could be set back in line with the house wall, he would maybe then be okay with it. So the minimal to the house, you can see when you look at the updated drawing, it's 174 centimeters and
Right.
243 centimeters to the house. That's about 4.17 meters to the house. The
Right.
neighbor would be okay with the roof of the carport at that distance, which that's not what's shown on the drawing. So I just
Right.
wanted to clarify if I understood that right.
No, I see what you're saying. So in actuality, that carport then could shift forward, correct? That would then leave more distance in the rear yard. That would satisfy Scott's concern, and it would still meet the neighbor's concern next door. Am I understanding that rationale correctly?
Through
you
you,
up?
Chair. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
So
Oh, sorry,
I said-
Yeah, go ahead.
No, who wants, Cheryl, do you want to talk?
okay, so through you, Chair, sorry. So I believe in regards to our staff report, it was the impact of the sunlight to the neighbors and the streetscape. If the carport roof was in line with the house, it
Right.
would be a very short carport. But if it's a mini, that might accommodate it.
Right.
Thank you.
Scott?
Yeah, I was going to say, based on what I'm hearing, and the applicant has indicated a willingness to defer, I really like, and I agree with my colleague Bob, that they've done some really, really good redesign on the garage and the addition and the porch, and I think it's going to fit in quite nicely. And I think we should probably approve that and defer the carport. I really do.
Anyone else?
Through you,
Jennifer?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to the Madam Secretary Treasurer. Can we partially approve and defer?
I'm sorry, I honestly never had that happen, so I would have to seek legal advice as to whether or not you could hold back a portion of this decision, because the variances are all subject to the same application.
I don't think, actually don't think we can split it like that because it did come in under one application. And like I said, I'm not legal. I agree with Diane. She would have to seek legal advice. But from what I'm hearing, if there's a willingness by all parties to permit the roof line to match the front of the neighbor's house or porch, which is right next door, which on this scale would be 100. I can't read that. Is that 114 inches? Then maybe we could do the approval on those bases. Yeah, Scott?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, sorry to continue to dialogue on this. I've looked at this immensely detailed. Staff are recommending refusal of what you're describing. If you look in the report, if we move that carport forward in line with the front porch of the neighbors, there's concern about impact. What they've tried to do on the drawing is shift everything, I'm going to call it, to the right side of the page, and that's creating another variance. And we can't just create another variance. What happens to the neighbor next door if the roof overhang is right on top of them? So I mean, I've been a member of committee adjustments before. We've approved partial applications. I don't understand why we can't approve what is necessary for the garage. I don't understand it.
Steve, do you have an opinion on what we're discussing here, since you're representing transportation?
Through the chair, I discussed it with Cheryl as well, and we're both kind of in agreement that the carport shouldn't be impacting kind of the view, the sight lines of the neighbor's porch.
Right.
I'm having a look now at these drawings as well, the newer one from this morning. I agree that I think shifting it back the way that it looks on the page would create another variance, which would be a setback thing and not really my wheelhouse. But I think given the kind of context and the support from the neighbors, as long as it's the same thing, if it can be in line, I think, with the neighbor's porch, and not kind of to the left, further or closer to the lot boundary than the roadway, than the neighbor's porch. And I think that would be fine from a transportation perspective. It's already kind of an awkward shaped lot for DVTs and everything like that. So there's not much we can do there, and it would technically be, I think, encroaching, but given that it's only held up with 2 pillars, it shouldn't impact any vehicle sight lines with where the neighbor's porch is in relation to the new carport, either looking to the east or the west. I'm trying to think in context of where the site is.
Yeah.
So like my concern mostly with the application was more with the DVT to this for the garage, which is shown on there, the 4.57 that's being encroached. That will be covered and kind of updated with the new zoning bylaw, where they only need to have a 3 meter encroachment, 3 meter DVT into the property. So there would be no concerns from our end there. In terms of the carport, I'm sort of on the same page in terms of aligning it with the neighbor's porch is probably the best bet.
Can I just mention too, with the whole removal of that back deck that's currently there, that creates more of an issue for both ourselves and our neighbor Byron, as far as the DVT is backing out of the driveway. So removing that totally will actually open up the sight lines for both ourselves and for him.
Cheryl, do you have something?
Yes, through the chair. I just want to clarify, and sorry, I don't have a drawing that I could mark up for you, but there's two, the carport roof, and I think we have to look at the roof because that's the issue with the sunlight. Staff is not supportive of having it to the porch. We are in support of having it to the main part of the house, which is actually 4.17 meters back. And I know Steve, sorry, I just wanted to clarify, Steve and I had talked about the house and not actually the porch. Sorry. Thank you.
And again, we're trying to be very supportive and as flexible as we can be if it requires that we go back, so that part of my Mini can park underneath, that would be totally fine with us. We're just trying to make the best use of the space, keeping in mind the traditions of the neighborhood. And we're not in there to try to upset anybody's apple cart. We're just trying to really bring some modern features to the house, and being able to, what do we need to do to this house to enable us to continue to live there in our elderly years.
Right. So just to make sure I'm understanding, so if we were to take this carport where you show the roof drawn now, which shoves it near the back of the rear property line, if we were to move that to the front, shift the whole thing to the front of the garage elevation,
Right?
which would then, move it off that back property line again. And we're just talking roof here. Would that satisfy everyone? Scott?
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, that was what the request was that staff were denying. If you look at what the request was, is to have that front overhang of the garage be 1.7 meters back. And that's what the drawing on page, I think, 3 or 4 of the staff report shows. We don't know what that new setback is. It looks like it's 2 point something because it's now 3.5 to the first post. They've moved the post back another meter. So I don't even know what I'd be approving here. That's my problem.
Right.
And we did move it in order to satisfy the DVT, because we also decreased the width of the driveway, I think, in order to meet some of those concerns. We're just really trying to make this work. And however the committee wants us to do it, we're willing to do that just to make it work.
Since we're talking roof lines, personally myself, I don't really see a problem with the way that it was resubmitted. We're not talking walls or building structure, it's just roof.
And our architect has been just amazing. If we need to change the angle, we're just trying to avoid a flat roof, which can produce all kinds of problems down the road. But if we need to change the angle on that roof, Byron's porch is elevated. The carport itself will be below. The roof will impact, but it won't. There'll be so much sunlight still coming down the street from the side of our house that will get to his place.
Right. Anyone else have anything else to add? Bob?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't see a problem with this.
I don't either.
They've done a great job. They've improved the DVT. The new bylaw will have the whatever it is, 3.0 versus the 4.57. So I'm okay with this the way it is. So if I may, I will make a motion. All my questions have been answered. I'll move.
Hang on 1 sec, Bob,
Okay.
for the motion. Cheryl's got her hand up, so.
For you, the chair, I do apologize, but just from a zoning point of view, I just want to clarify to the applicant that if the post at 3.5 meters is approved, you're only allowed a roof overhang of 0.6 meters in front of that 2 feet. So, I mean, this drawing, it would be not quite what you would get because the roof would have lighting would still have to come in to be no more than 0.6 meters in front of the post. I just want to
Okay.
clarify that.
I've made a note of that, Cheryl. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry, Bob.
No problem. I think all of the questions have been answered. At least my questions have been answered. I move that this be approved and that the detached carport also be approved.
Without the building permit condition, is that correct?
Oh, yeah, we have to fix that to the permit be applied for.
Yeah, okay, permit applied for. All right, Jennifer?
Just a point of clarification, that Mr. McCall is moving the variances in the amended application, including a variance for a detached carport to be located 1.74 meters from the Mansion Street.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, that's a motion on the floor. Is there a second? Scott, all in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. I would give you all a big hug if I could. Thank you.
Thanks.
Someday.
Yeah,
You got it. Thank you.
Bob, that's too cheeky. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, next application's A 2021-61. It's 29 Floral Crescent. And we have one person in support. It's Marie.
I apologize through you, the chair. There is one other person in the audience that I just need to confirm which application they are here for.
Sure.
The person that has entered as Jessie Girl 27987, can you please let me know which application you are here for? You have unmuted yourself, but I can't quite hear you. Do you?
Okay. Hi. Hello.
Not just yet, sorry. The person in the attendee spot, if you have entered with Jessie Girl 2987, can you please let me know which application you're here for?
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Is this for application for 29 Floral Crescent?
Okay. Can you hold on one second?
Yeah, I'll just let you sort it out, Diane.
I know. I'm sorry.
That's all right. No problem. Technology.
Okay, why don't you proceed and hopefully I can get it sorted out on the next
Yeah,
round.
Mike, yes, something you wanna? You're on mute. Mike, you're on mute. There you go.
I can only see the speaker and me on camera. Is that a setting that I've messed with or something that
Upper right-hand corner, Mike, there's a view, click on it and it'll say some other view and it's gallery view that you want. Upper right-hand corner.
I'm trying to click on trying to work on a
Move your cursor just to the upper right-hand corner.
Hover your cursor, like Scott said, over the right top right hand.
Well, I don't have a cursor with this tablet.
Oh,
I can move you around with the speaker, but I can't do anything else. I mean, it's no big deal. It's just I don't want to look at you all the morning. Oh, wait a minute. Let's try this. I now have 3 people. So
okay. All right. We'll carry on. Okay, so the applicant's online. Marie?
Hi, my name is Marie.
Okay. And staff's recommending approval with a tree preservation enhancement plan. Looking at when I looked at the photo that came with your backyard, a lot of these just looks like just low vegetation in pots and things like that. Can you maybe help us understand how your backyard is and what kind of trees you have there? I just myself, I don't understand why they're looking for a tree preservation plan on this.
I believe that there is a tree, one big tree at the rear yard, and it's I'm not sure the height, but taller than the roof. So and it's a bit close to the proposed sunroom.
Okay.
But, one way we can protect is to I'm not sure, but we can put like a fence or just to protect the trunk and stuff like that. And the proposed sunroom is, we can provide a bit of a setback to protect the trees around it. And yeah.
Okay, all right. Does anyone else have any questions or comments? Bob?
Yes, Mr. Chair, a question through you to maybe staff. I noticed there's some documents here from the region on source protection plan compliance. I'm a little confused as to what this is all about.
We checked the like the zoning, and there are like I'm not sure if we are required for it because it's just a sunroom, so we're not adding like kitchen or adding anything. It's just building a sunroom. That's it.
Yeah. And I don't see this, the region didn't ask for any conditions on that either, so.
Mhm.
Anyone else? Jennifer? You're muted.
Sorry, yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. It took me a while to find my unmute button. Just want to confirm, I see the plan here for the proposed sunroom through Mr. Chair to the applicant. How does the proposed sunroom relate to the existing deck? Is it about the same size, larger?
Yeah, it's a bit smaller actually. I believe, let me check the site plan. Yeah, the proposal is 12 feet by 22. So the existing deck is, I believe it's bigger.
The existing deck is bigger? Okay. And will you be excavating to put this sunroom in?
4 feet below for the freezing line. So the owner wants to have a good foundation around it. And,
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's helpful. So then I think for that, on that basis, it sounds like your client, the owner, is not objecting to the condition. So I think I would support it staying there. And I'm wondering a question for my fellow committee members. Perhaps we should impose a second condition, as we have in the past, restricting the height to 1 story.
Yeah, it is 1 story.
All right. Thank you.
Roof or lower.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Scott?
Mr. Chairman, I support my colleague's request for a minor adjustment to the recommendation, and I certainly support the application with the condition, and I'm prepared to move if there's no other comments.
Second? Jennifer, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, the next application is A 2021-62. Quasier Court 316. And for this, oops, we have one person, the applicant in support. Staff's recommending approval with conditions before we move forward. I just have a question for staff on this one, I guess, Janine. At the bottom of the sentence number 3, I've never really seen this before because I think it probably would go without saying. It says failure to complete the conditions may result in this approval becoming null and void. Well, it would result in it becoming null and void, correct? And I don't know, do we even need that in there?
I don't think it's necessary to be in there.
Just clouds it a bit, I thought, right?
Yeah. I think it was just maybe, and I don't know if it was taken from some other decisions where it was used, and maybe it's not always used, but That's
Yeah.
definitely the determination.
Okay, good. Not trying to put you on the spot. I know you're filling in quickly at the last minute for Brian, but I just was asking for your opinion, I guess, as much as anything. Because it just, I thought it might just cloud things, and I don't really think it's necessary either. So we may want to, if someone moves this, you may want to consider amending this by removing that. Bob?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I agree completely. This is a very minor variance, 5.65 versus 7.5. So I move that this be approved as amended with the failure to complete conditions, et cetera, being removed.
Hang, put a pause on it. Jennifer wants to say something, so does Scott. So who wants to go first? Scott?
You okay with me going first, Jen?
You're the one with the mic on.
I'm going to suggest that we add the similar condition to a one-story covered porch, because if it's 2 stories high, there would be, I think, impacts from a visibility standpoint on the neighboring property. So I'm going to suggest we just simply construct a 1-story covered porch.
Bob, you're in agreement with that friendly amendment?
Absolutely.
Okay, Jennifer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This application appears to me to be very similar to the application we just approved. Yet the conditions are more onerous. I'm just wondering why there's a inconsistent approach in terms of the conditions for these 2 applications. I don't know if anyone can answer that, but if not, I would actually suggest that the conditions be similar to what we just approved as opposed to what's set out in the staff report.
So basically you're referring to condition number 2, correct?
Condition number 2, and then it's even less onerous in the previous application than it is set out here.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah. So it'd be condition 2 plus Mr. Hannah's amendment, but I think we could even strike from condition 2 everything after the word.
All of 3 could probably come out, correct?
So I think 1 and 3 could come out.
Right.
Again, just to be consistent with what we just approved.
Yeah.
For fairness.
Yeah. I think that makes sense.
I'm supportive of that, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Scott. Bob, you're the one doing the motion right now.
Okay, let me understand. We're going to cross off condition number 1 and condition number 3 and reword condition number 2.
Yes.
Okay.
Consistent with application A 2021-61.
Okay. I'll go with that.
All right. Which then makes it easier for the applicant.
Okay, so there's
Okay.
my
So
revised.
there's the motion. Do I have a second? Scott, all in favor? Carried, approved. Thank you. Thanks, Vince.
Thank you. Oh, huh? I just,
Okay.
so I'm looking.
Next application is A 2163. That's 48 Martin Street. We have 1 person registered, which is the applicant.
Hi there, this is Richard.
Hey, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Doing well.
Good. Staff's recommending approval with 2 conditions. And the one condition that kind of confuses me, and I'd like to hear why from staff, is the purpose of a site plan application, because I don't think anything's really changing, is it?
So through the chair, Denny, the requirement for a site plan is just that it's going from a duplex to a triplex, and the triplex triggers site plan control. So the site plan itself is going to be very scope, because it'll just recognize where the required parking is, that it's 3 units, and then satisfy that second condition with regard to identifying the bike parking.
Okay. Anyone else? Scott?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I had a similar comment, but I understand it's a requirement. I also am suggesting, or I have a question for the applicant. Has the work taken place, or you're converting the garage, correct?
No, actually, I'm converting the basement, which is an in-law suite, into the third unit.
Okay, so I'm more concerned because everything's happening internal that we actually impose a condition that a permit be applied for. So we are ensuring that it's going to be done correctly. So I would recommend that we support it with another condition that says that a building permit for the third unit be applied for.
Absolutely. That was actually the plan, to go to the building department and apply for a permit after the variance was approved.
All right. Is there anyone else? If not, is that a motion, Scott?
I'd be prepared to move that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Second? Bob, all in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you all. Appreciate it. Have a good day.
Thank you. Okay, next application is A2164 34 Uxbridge Crescent.
Mr. Chair, at this point, as I've notified both you and our Secretary Treasurer, I have a small conflict with this, so I will turn myself on.
Okay, thanks, Bob. It's a pretty straightforward application. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Jennifer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, just to be consistent, I'm wondering if this should be restricted in height to a single story. If the applicant has any concerns with that, otherwise, no questions or concerns.
Okay.
We do not have any concerns with that. Sorry, this is Ian, the applicant.
Okay, yeah, Ian, thanks. All right. All right, so that would be imposed in one condition. Anyone else? Or is that a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'll move this application be approved with the restriction to a single story.
All right, second? Scott?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next application is A2165, and that's 117 Golden Meadow Crescent. We have one person registered for that who's in support. Bob's back, good. Staff's recommending approval without conditions. Is there any questions, comments, or motion?
Just a question for staff, Mr. Chairman. Has the permit been applied for?
Maybe you need to, maybe the applicant can answer that better. Scott?
Okay. Anybody?
Yeah, Rob? Rob? I see him down there. He's got his hand raised. I don't know where he went. Are you there, Rob?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, okay. Have you applied for the building permit?
Not as of yet, no, but we will be making an application for it.
Okay.
So similar, Mr. Chairman, to be consistent, because this is all internal and once the variance is approved, it's beyond our kind of control. I think we should impose a condition that a permit be applied for.
Building permit, sure.
Yep.
Okay, Jennifer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to staff, this is an existing house. It looks like it's not even a new house. So the driveway and parking appears to be an existing condition that was subject to a building permit at some point in time. I'm not sure I understand how this situation came to be. It appears to be legal non-conforming, and I'm not sure I understand why it needs to be legalized.
Did you?
Through the chair, I'm gonna just have to confirm with staff. And I don't
Okay.
know if the applicant has some background to clarify.
Yeah,
Rob, can you help?
yeah, for sure. So essentially, it is an existing condition. There's no operation in there yet. We haven't set up anything. He does have a rental unit right now that he's using. He'd like to change position because of COVID. The rent rates have gone up, so he wants to move this operation to his garage, and it'll just be himself working from there. He won't have any staff or anything. He's just basically bottling some sauces inside this garage, and he's just going to be using a regular stove to make that.
So the parking is being legalized in relation to a home occupation. Is that right?
So right now, because the parking will not be behind the building line, we're just trying to get it legalized for out front of the garage because he's losing that space inside the garage.
Mr. Chairman, what application are we dealing with here? I'm confused.
We're dealing with 117 Golden Meadow Crescent.
Okay.
It's A2165.
Okay. Okay, fair enough.
Okay.
Because it's just being converted to a duplex, correct?
No,
No. No.
just a single family dwelling.
Yeah, it's to permit so they can do the home business in half the garage.
That's the next one I thought.
No.
Isn't that yellow birch?
Nope. Nope.
Yellow birch is in regards to the garage as well, but it's
It's a different one.
yeah, it's just to make more living space inside the house.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I share Mr. Hannah's concern or confusion. It's not clear to me exactly what the overall proposal is here. It's just that we're being asked to legalize an existing parking situation. So I didn't mean to create more confusion than was necessary. I just don't I don't like seeing applications personally that aren't necessary and put applicants through a process that is not needed. So I just wanted to understand why we are asking to legalize an existing legal non-conforming situation. However, if the applicant is satisfied, they've come this far, staff obviously supports the legalization. I'm prepared to make a motion to approve.
Janine?
Through the chair, if it's helpful, from what I understand from staff is that they want to convert the garage to living space. So it's not, this was news to staff that they might use it for the home occupation, but a home occupation is allowed if they get the proper zoning certificates to permit it.
Yeah.
And if it meets our requirements in the zoning bylaw.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's very helpful. So that means they're losing a parking space in the garage and they therefore are putting it on the driveway. Thank you. That's very helpful. So this isn't a legalization of an existing legal non-conforming. It is a true variance. So again, thank you for the clarification, and I'm happy to make a motion to approve the application without conditions.
See, now if
with one condition, the building permit.
Right. And here's where some of the confusion might be, it's in the way that our package was copied for us, because and this comes back to my opening comments, Diane, because on the back side of the first page of the next application is actually the floor plan for this garage that shows the proposed mudroom and existing garage, which is really just going to be a storage space now, if I correctly understand that. So that kind of clarifies it right there, I think. Okay, that being said, there's a motion on the floor with one condition. Scott?
I'll second it.
Second, all in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Appreciate that.
All right. Next application is A20 or 2021-66, 195 Yellow Birch. Two people in support. I guess Rob's on that one as well.
Yep.
Just two things, house cleaning again, before we move forward. If we're to consider this application, it should be the building permit at best is applied for, not obtained, because that's out of the hands of the applicant. And failure to complete the application, that last sentence should come out as well, because that would go without saying anyways. And I just don't want to add any additional confusion or muddy the recommendations. So that being said, does anyone have any questions or comments for the applicant? Scott?
Just a question either for, I guess the applicant or staff. First of all, the applicant, are clients coming to the site for the catering service, or are you just doing this externally?
Oh, that was for the previous one,
That
but
was a previous one, Scott.
Really?
Yeah, you're getting mixed up because the floor plan for the previous one is actually in this application on the back page. I think that's
Okay.
confusion.
and to answer that question, no, it'll just be the homeowner, like the
Okay.
person running the business.
Okey doke.
Okay, anyone else? Anything else or a motion?
Through you, Mr. Chair, further
Mike.
to Scott's question, I think it needs answering. This particular application, is the catering service going to be servicing the public from the location, or is it just a preparation site with deliveries going out? I'm concerned about traffic volumes and parking, this being right at essentially a three-way intersection.
Can you answer that, Rob?
So, yeah, with that, it's just the homeowner that's going to be operating the business. He won't be having any customers coming in. He's just bottling some sauces. So there won't be any clients or anything coming to the.
Okay, so the comments about the bottling that I heard in the previous application really just to this one.
For this one, it's just going to be living space. It's not going to be a home business. They just want to convert the garage into half storage and then half to make a powder room on the main floor, as well as a laundry room. And we will be applying for a building permit for both of them.
Okay, I think I now understand as well.
Okay. Yeah, it's a little confusing because one seemed to flow into the other, and the way that it was kind of presented to us. So
I understand.
it would have been probably even easier if both these applications had another one in between them.
Yeah.
Janine?
So now I'm getting confused.
Yeah.
We're on 195 Yellow Birch
Yes,
Street?
we are. Yes.
So when I'm looking at what the request is, it is to allow a catering service establishment as a home business accessory to a single detached dwelling.
Right. Yeah. Rob was a little bit confused, I think, there as well. So anyways, that's what this is for. And so the questions, yeah, Jennifer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Ms. Osterveld. Picking up on your comment, is the language home business, is that the language that's used in the zoning? Because if this is being established as a home business, then I just want to confirm that this catering business will therefore be subject to all the home business regulations about number of employees, number of parking spaces, et cetera.
That's a good question. And just because you're asking it very specifically, I thought I knew for sure, but since Cheryl is on the call here listening, I wouldn't mind having her just confirm for us.
Sure.
For you, Chair, I'm sorry. I was doing something else. Could you repeat the question?
Okay.
We're on Yellow Birch or Yellow.
Yeah, we're on, yes, Yellow Birch. Yeah.
That was my fault. Sorry about that.
If I can help, I will answer the question. What was it? Sorry.
Certainly, I'll just repeat. In the recommendation, it's to establish a catering service as a home business. So that's the specific language used. I'm wondering what the language is in the zoning bylaw, if it's home business, home occupation, what it is. I think the language here should be consistent to ensure that this business will be subject to the regulations for home businesses in terms of parking, number of employees, amount of space, whatever the regulations are in the city zoning.
Okay, thank you. And that's a good point, because in bylaw 85-1, the current bylaw for residential, it is home business, but in the new Crosby, it'll be home occupation. But so this is the correct wording for this bylaw.
Which is the one we're currently in. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
This relates to bylaw 85-1.
Yes.
Yes.
And so 85-1 has home business.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm unless you had any further business on this, I'm happy to make a motion
All right.
to be approved with the modification to condition 2.
Okay. Second. Mike, all in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, the next one is 806 Belmont Ave. And we have one person in support, which is the applicant. Staff's recommending approval with a one condition, which is fairly straightforward. Does anyone have any questions or comments or motion? Yes.
I just want to say, yesterday we had email confirmation from Trevor Oakley in the building division, who is the building inspector assigned, that he has that updated drawing.
Okay.
So the condition is actually met.
Yeah, okay. All right, anyone? Bob?
Yes, Mr. Chair, this is fairly straightforward. I think the one condition should remain, even though it has been
That'll be able to be cleared right away. Yeah.
So I move that this be approved as per the staff report with one
All right.
condition.
Great. Second. Scott, all in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next application's 82168. One person registered, Lena, which is the applicant. Pretty straightforward application as well. Maybe just for this planner that prepared this file, what we'd like to see in the report, I think it's just a recital of what was applied for, opposed to just that application number be approved. That's all. It's just for clarifications. It's a little bit more consistent, specifically if someone refers back to this specific report in the future, it doesn't really state what that is. So that could maybe be amended to this report. That would be helpful as part of the process for approval. Beyond that, does anyone have any questions or comments or motion?
Through the chair to the applicant, this is just a quick question. The photographs that were provided and the drawings appear to indicate that access to the rear yard on that side of the property is cut off. Is there access on the other side of the home into the rear yard, or does it have to be through the garage?
Hi, the access to that, so we purchased it a couple of years ago, and we never really used the access to the side of the house, but yes, the access is there if we need to use it, but there's like bushes and trees sort of growing on the side of the house, so we just never really used it.
Use it, right? Okay.
On the carport side or on the?
Yeah, on the carport side, yeah. So it's kind of like, because there's a trail when you look at the house on the left side, there's a trail, there's a fence and a trail. And so we just never really used that access. We always use the garage to go through it into the backyard.
Right.
Okay. And that's, obviously, that'll be retained. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, well, based on those comments, the application is pretty straightforward, and I'm prepared to make a motion to approve the application as
Okay.
submitted.
Second. Bob, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, next application. Okay. Is A 2021-69. We've got a number of people registered in opposition, a few registered in support. Two of the supports are observers only. And then we have the opposition. Staff's, I'm just going to set this up. So staff's recommending refusal. So I think what we'll do is we'll hear from the members or the people in opposition first to hear their concerns. Then we'll give the applicant an opportunity to address their concerns and address the fact that staff is recommending a refusal. And then we can open the floor up by the members of the committee to address staff, the applicant, or anyone else that they wish to. So based upon that, we'll start with the opposition, which would be Michael. Just one thing before we start, just friendly comment to the people that are speaking. If we've heard the comments already, we don't need to hear them twice. They'll be duly noted. And we do take everything that everyone hears seriously. So we don't need to hear a repetitive series of issues from a multitude of people. So that being said, Michael, are you there? See there, Diane?
Mr. Chair, if I can just address you, I don't believe that Michael Harrison has joined into the meeting, and I did send an email to them.
Okay, all right. So then the next one would be Anne. Anne, are you there? Anne?
Yes, I'm here.
There we go. All right. I'm giving you the floor to let you voice your concerns in opposition. So we're ready to hear from you. I think did you send in a written submission too? Did you not?
Yeah.
I'm just looking for in my pile here first. So
It just contains some of my thoughts as to this whole procedure. I think my main concern is that this is really the test case on how this area is going to be developed. And that the developer is pushing the maximum that would be allowed on this little piece of property. The height concerns me because it's such a small little block. It's going to be a prison wall, a concrete prison wall, 104 feet high, going from Dane to Borden. And that the other concern is the parking, and that based on the justification of the LRT. I've lived in this neighborhood for 40 years, and when I walk my dog, I see cars in everybody's driveway still. And so to think that people are going to abandon other vehicles for riding the LRT is good, but it's only as good as it goes to where you want to go. And that I included in my written submission some photos of what I thought were really well-designed, blended infill in this area. So really, these are the gatekeepers of how this area will develop. And I would like to thank the planning department for catching a few faux pas on the design for measurements and everything. And I'll leave it in the trust that you will make the right decision. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next person is Carrie. You there, Carrie?
Yes, thank you, Chairman.
Yeah.
I've submitted my comments in writing to the Secretary Treasurer, and I have nothing further to add at this time.
Okay, great. Thanks, Carrie. We have them. All right, next one is Jay. Is Jay online?
Hi, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi. Yeah, so I had a few concerns with the property. I know the first resident had mentioned, or the first person had mentioned parking. Specifically, I would have an issue with the actual buffer that they've shown between the landscape buffer between the parking and the adjacent properties. I know the neighboring properties are fairly close to that property line. So it's a very minimal buffer. As far as the massing, it's a large 70-meter gray mass that would be appearing above the tree line for those neighboring homes. So if something like this were to go ahead, I'd like to see a visual impact analysis or a view shed, some kind of graphic showing what the impact would be visually for neighboring properties. What that rear wall would look like. I know they've shown some coloring on those windows, but I don't think that's enough to break up that gray mass that would be seen from those neighbors. Also, I think I'd also like to see some kind of shadow analysis done for what those shadows would actually do to the neighboring properties. You can do a quick SketchUp shadow analysis and see that for most of the year, at least those two homes directly adjacent to the property are going to be covered in shadow for much of the afternoon. And if you look at, January winter months, those shadows are going to extend 100 to 300 meters into the neighborhood beyond. So I'd like to see a shadow analysis done for something like this. A final issue is the lack of commercial. So they've shown live work, which isn't really public commercial space for that ground floor. So I'd like to see a ground floor commercial in a development like this. And those are my main concerns.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jay. Okay, the next is Susan.
Hi there.
Yeah, hi, Sue. I see you sent in a submission as well, correct?
I did, and thank you to my fellow community members. They've addressed everything that we're concerned about, and we're actually one of the houses that is directly adjacent to that development. We are majorly concerned and heartbroken by that proposal for all the reasons that have been brought up.
Okay. All right. Just so that it's noted, we did receive a letter of support or an email of support as well from Melissa Bauman. And there was also another letter of objection that the person's not here, but just so that it's noted for the file. That's all the people in opposition. What I will do at this point then is we'll turn this over to Pierre to walk us through the application and as to why we should be considering this as a committee of adjustment application, opposed to recommendation of a zone change. And for various reasons, to be honest with you, that's my thinking on this file as well. And I think we can deal with it here as we have dealt with these applications of this nature before. So, Pierre.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Deanne, I have a
brief slide presentation. Would I be able to share my screen?
Pierre, it was provided with the instructions for the registration to the meeting that any submissions that would need to be provided to the committee needed to be submitted this morning by 8:30. So.
Okay, my apologies. You don't do that. Okay, well.
You can forward it to myself and I can forward it up to the committee members if that would help, but
Sure.
we don't generally do screen sharing in committee adjustment because of the length of time that it takes to get through the applications.
Okay, fair enough. I think most of the material I have sent or I had in my presentation has already been provided in the submission package. So I'll just refer to that. But again, thank you everybody, and thanks to the members of the public who have attended. I guess to start, I will state that we obviously are in disagreement with the staff position on this particular application and the need to do a zone change. We have not heard a particular reason, a valid reason to go through a zone change in this particular instance, other than the need to have public engagement, which I should note that we did have on our own. That we did engage, and I believe some of the members that are here will recall that we did have a virtual session. We tried to have an in-person session a while ago, but that didn't happen, obviously due to obvious COVID reasons. But in any event, we did have a great conversation with some of the members of the public that attended, and we did make some revisions to, I think Jay alluded to some of the changes to the rear elevation. As a result of that discussion that we had with the residents, we added more fenestration and colored a similar colored scheme to the windows to the rear to break up that visual aspect of this wall that people refer to. This is a unique site. It's a brownfield site. The auto dealership that was there, some of you will know that it burned down recently. Is in desperate need of cleanup. Our client is in the process of doing an RSC to clean it up. So it is being cleaned up, and we hope it's been long identified as an area of intensification for many years now. It's been identified as within a mixed-use corridor within the King Street East Secondary Plan, which is identified as mixed use with a floor space ratio of 4. This development is actually below that floor space ratio. That exceeds the height that's contemplated in the zoning bylaw. And that special regulation at the time was put in to deal with sort of that compatibility with the adjacent low-rise residential neighborhood. And we certainly appreciate that and recognize that. And in order to address that, we've pushed the entire mass as much as possible of the building towards the street, and such that, and even have all the balconies and the units facing King Street. So this is a single loaded apartment building, which is kind of unique in itself. And to sort of animate the street front, our architect has proposed this colored film on all the balconies to create this kind of what he calls this easel, this painting easel, so that it's the front face of the building is the canvas full of paint, and the backside is sort of the easel holding up this canvas. So those are his words, not mine. But it's really, I think it's a quite a beautiful building, and I think staff have agreed with us on that mark. The issue, frankly, is the building height, and the parking, and what that we're requesting. Now, on the parking, we have submitted a TIS. That TIS supports the variances that we're recommending. And it is based on not only the location and its close proximity within a minute walk to the boarding station, but also other TDM measures in terms of car share and unbundling of the parking and indoor bicycle storage. Those are all other TDM, transportation demand measurement measures that our client is proposing to implement here. And those can be coordinated and formalized through the site plan review process. Like I said, this is a long-standing area identified for intensification, primary intensification for the city. It is within a major transit station area. So it's identified for growth, and staff have agreed in the report that we generally conform with the intent of the official plan. But to deal with, and in that regard, as you know, the city is in the process of updating all of their neighborhood. They're doing through a neighborhood review all their secondary plans, the King Street secondary plan being one. And back in its earlier iteration of the secondary plan, it identified these lands as having a 10-story building height. That was subsequently continued with the floor space ratio of 4. When that was brought forward to council in December 2019, this is the last iteration of it, that was reduced down to 8 stories. So already staff have identified the need to go up, and they've eliminated also this special provision of 54(1)R in the secondary plan in favor, and this is already in your current zoning bylaw 2019-51. The proposal is to eliminate 54(1)R, the special reg, in favor of this regulation 4-19 in the new bylaw that basically stipulates a 50-meter setback relative to low-rise residential neighborhoods, and after that, the height can go up to its maximum height. We are well beyond that 15 meters. So I would say we are definitely consistent with what the planning direction is going. I've seen that justification, I would say, before this committee in the past with respect to how the secondary plan has identified these certain lands and how certain variances conform with that direction. I note staff didn't even contemplate that or even mention that in their staff report. So I think what we're proposing is definitely consistent with where the direction is going. It is a minor variance from the 8 stories that's contemplated in the mix or MU. Sorry, mix. I'm getting my zone, new zone categories mixed up. The new mix 3 zone, which is 8 stories. It is a change from the 8 stories to 10. And also, finally, the whole discussion around penthouses. The definition of building height quite clearly excludes penthouses. Nowhere in the bylaw does it mention anything about GFA of a penthouse. And if a penthouse has GFA, then it should be included in the building height. I think there is a definite issue with that. This has also been carried forward in the new bylaw and the definition of building heights under section 413 of the new bylaw. It specifically excludes penthouses from the building height definition. So again, we're consistent with the new direction of the bylaw that's in force and effect, but may not apply to this particular secondary plan area yet. Let me just see. I think I've touched on some of the issues that we have with the staff report. In the end, we believe with the design of this building, the massing towards the street, the orientation of all the units so there's no overlook towards the residents, does mitigate against the potential impact relative to the neighbors. It does, at the end of the day, we are proposing rental housing, which is badly needed, as you all know, in this community. In terms of some of the additional variances that staff note in their staff report, I would suggest if the committee is willing to support this application, they clarify the following 3 things. That specifically that the building height definition be amended to exclude the penthouse, which to me it already does, but just to clarify that. And request a building height. So number 2, request a building height of the 32 meters, provided that we meet a minimum setback of 18 meters. That is greater than the 15 meters that I've spoken to earlier that the city is coming up with, has instituted in their current bylaw. And lastly, with respect to the CVT or the corner visibility triangles, that they amend the definition of CVT in the current bylaw to reflect the new bylaw's definition, which reduces the CVT to 6 meters on both legs of the triangle and 3 meters on the other both legs. And lastly, to permit a pillar, which we have on both corners to support the cantilevered structure. To me, it meets the intent of the CVT, the small pillar that does not obstruct the entire visibility triangle. It's only a small portion of it, and it is meant to help us achieve the density and mass that we want towards the street. Again, I have, unfortunately, I do have the shadow study analysis that I could have shared, but we have done in response to some of the comments, particularly from Jay, the question about the shadow study. That has been completed. It has been submitted with our application. I believe the committee may even have that with their submission.
We do.
And so you'll see, particularly, I'll point out in the summer equinox. So there's just for the benefit of the public, we've done the analyses under the 4 different sort of equinoxes: the spring, summer, fall, and winter. Spring and fall are generally the same. Winter, we generally don't consider because typically most people are indoors during that time, and the impacts, in terms of the impact is usually analysis of on your amenity space, and those spaces are typically used obviously in spring, fall, summer. Summer, there's literally no shadow cast onto, particularly for the time periods. Just in the late evening time period, there is a shadow cast towards Borden. Whereas in the spring and fall, again, yes, there is a slight shadow cast on the 2 homes abutting. But again, it doesn't exceed the 2 time periods, more than 2 time periods in any consecutive period of time. So you will have some, I will say there will be no impact for the 2 houses for most of the day, but for 2 periods, there may be a shadow impact during that course of the time. In which case, bottom line, in my view, the shadow impact is nominal. So those are my submissions, and I'm sure there'll be lots of questions, and I can answer those the committee may have. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Pierre. Before I turn this over to the committee, I just got a couple comments myself. Personally, I'm in support of this application. I just want to note a few things. It meets the official plan. I think it is minor in nature. When you look at in the staff report, there's a big mistake in the calculation. It says is the variance minor. It says it's 164%. It's not 164%, it's 64%. And I think that we need to note that and as part of our consideration. So it doesn't really appear as large as what the staff report has written it to be. So I think we need to definitely address or look at the parking concerns, and I can go through that with Steve. That's just where I'm coming from on this particular one. So does anyone have any questions or comments further to that? Scott.
A couple questions for the applicant. Mr. Chauvin, in November of 2020, you approached the city at a pre-con and were told you needed a zoning amendment. Why didn't you apply at that point in time?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we frankly didn't agree with their opinion.
Okay, so you're basically going to fight City Hall. I've learned in over 35 years in planning that's not a particularly good idea. Question for you again on the size of the units. I'm reading that most of them are in excess or around 700 square feet. They're 1 bedroom with dens. Some of them are 2 bedrooms. Can you explain again how you feel that's going to satisfy your parking? If they were bachelor, I'd be on board with you, but I'm seeing some pretty large units here.
Well, somewhat through you, Mr. Chair, the unit configuration obviously is a function of sort of what we have in the layout of the building. But again, our traffic consultant is confident that this parking ratio is supportable. based on its location on not only on a transit route and an arterial road, which is also identified as a cycling route in the region's official plan, but so it does support transit. This development would support transit and does encourage sort of multimodal forms of transportation. But as I mentioned, the TDM measures that we were implementing will help offset the need for vehicles. So I think I'll leave it at that.
Okay, and just staff for the applicant confirm, I'm reading that you're roughly 55 feet higher than what the bylaw currently allows.
Sorry, is that a question of staff or myself?
Either or. It's I'm reading it at over 15 meters, and 15 meters is 50 feet, so I'm reading it around 55. I dig dealing with feet.
Yeah, I have to look at my conversion calculator to make that work. So I deal in meters. So we're in a different vintage, Scott.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't think I would agree with 55 feet. The building height is 32 meters. The difference is 19. I think 19.5 is the bylaw. So it's 12 and a half meters, which is 41 feet.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I'll make a comment now, but quite frankly, the Committee of Adjustment has 3 days to review, I'm going to say 150 pages of documents and make a decision. Council would have, and also staff and the residents would have been able to see all the reports had a zoning application been filed and would have had months to review it. This should have happened 2 years ago. I will not be supporting the application. Council needs to make this decision.
Any comment on that?
Anyone else?
Can I comment on that, Mr. Chair?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, with all respect, we've had as you know, the pre-consultation many months ago. We submitted a site plan application back last year. Staff decided not to circulate this application again because of a difference of opinion. And an opinion that, again, like I said, I have not heard a reason why we need to go through zone change other than to circulate to the public. So we said, fine, we would do that. And we had circulated, hand delivered to the residents invitations, and they attended our own session that we had. So there has been engagement. And that's what this forum is for, is to have additional public engagement. So I would, I appreciate your comments, Member Hannah, but I would just disagree. We've tried, but staff, in fact, haven't even cracked the cover on some of these reports to even see what we have proposed. So it's been frustrating to say the least, but we have been trying with staff, but they have taken this corporate position on this particular issue and have decided to go with the zone change idea when I don't believe is necessary. In my view, the 4 tests under the Viner variance are far more difficult to meet than under a zone change. Under a zone change, as you would know, Mr. Hannah, I just need one test to confirm that I conform with the official plan. Staff, by their own admission in their own report, have indicated that we generally meet the intent of the official plan. So if I make an application for a zone change, I think they'll be pretty hard pressed to say now that we don't conform. So I just question, I think this process, in my view, is more stringent than what council would undertake. So those are my thoughts.
Anyone else? Bob?
Yeah, okay. Wow. This is quite a comprehensive application and submission. I think, was it Mr. Hannah said that it's a 100-page document? I calculated more like 200 pages of information. And it was so long, by the time I read to the end of it, I had to go back to the beginning to see what they were asking for. I guess that's an age thing. There are some concerns. One concern, and maybe this would be to Mr. Chauvin, who mentioned this, there isn't much discussion on the corner visibility triangle. It doesn't meet the requirements as the bylaw stands now, but it will meet the requirements of the new bylaw.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's a great question. Under the new bylaw, there's still a pillar. It would meet the dimensions of the new bylaw, but there's still a pillar, and it requires no obstructions. We've had other developments approved with pillars. 51 David Street comes to mind, where we had pillars within the DVT. To me, it's a small, yes, it is, by definition, it's an obstruction, but it's a small obstruction.
Thank you. That answers my question. And yeah, we have on a number of occasions allowed a minor encroachment into DVTs and CVTs. I just wanted to make sure that it generally meets the intention of the new bylaw. I'm pleased to hear that a shadow study has been done. And I do like the idea of the rooftop amenity space. That's nice. That'll help. One thing that hasn't been mentioned that maybe the neighbors might like to know, and I can speak from personal experience, when if this building were to go ahead, it would provide a huge reduction in street noise from King Street and the LRT. It would be a huge masonry structure and would really, really reduce the impact of noise on the existing single residential behind. So this is a complicated one, obviously, because there's a stack of paper with it. I'm kind of leaning in support of this. It meets the new bylaw. It will, as everything in life, there's a plus and a minus. The shadow is an impact to the neighbors behind, but that is, I think, is offset by the fact that it will be a whole lot quieter behind there. So, Mr. Chair, subject to what other comments may come forward, I'm getting off the fence on this, and I'm going to say I support this.
All right. Anyone else? Jennifer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just want to thank my colleagues for their comments and all of the residents who've come out to take the time to provide their comments. And I think there were some very meaningful and helpful comments made. And thank you to Mr. Chauvin for your presentation as well. I do have some questions, but a lot of my questions have been addressed through your presentation, Mr. Chauvin. But just in terms of starting with parking, so I understand this site is very close to a proposed parking station or transit station. It's in a major transit station area. What are the parking, have parking rates being established under the new zoning bylaw for this site? And you're varying under 85.1 for parking.
So you, Mr. Chair, to answer your last question first, yeah, it would be under 85.1 that we are varying, which I believe is right now 1 space per unit. I believe you're testing my memory on the parking rates, and maybe Stephen can answer this under the new bylaw. I think it's still 1, 0.9, and then 10% for visitor. So in terms of the visitor, we're going from, right now we're asking for 5%, whereas 10% is in the new bylaw. So total, it's 0.9 and then another 0.1 for visitor.
Okay, and it's in a major transit station area. Under the new bylaw, and again, maybe you're not the right person to answer this, Mr. Chauvin, but are there not areas of the city where 0 parking is required downtown?
Yes, you're correct. There are areas within the downtown where 0 parking is permitted.
All right, thank you. I know the variance you're seeking for height in terms of meters, looks like it's a 10-story building being proposed. Do you know how many stories are permitted? Would that be 6 stories?
It's roughly 6.5 stories permitted as of right.
All right, thank you. I saw you did an angular plane analysis as well, but it looks like that may be superseded by the setbacks that the city is looking at, and what you are at 18, they're proposing 14, 15?
Correct, yeah.
Okay. So, okay. In terms of shadow impact, I want to spend a bit of time on that. Are there policies in the official plan that talk about shadow impact and what has to be achieved?
Through you, Mr. Chair, no. I guess simple answer is no, and neither is there anything in their urban design guidelines. I would say way back, and there had been some direction with respect to shadow studies, but that had been removed from the city's guidelines. But this is what I've quoted in terms of that 2 consecutive time periods is sort of a general accepted rule.
Thank you. That was going to be my next question. So there's no policies that tie you down to that, but that's sort of your general rule and based on some historical guidelines.
That's correct, and that's how staff have applied that as well.
All right. My one concern with the shadow impact is that it doesn't appear. I accept your opinion that the impacts are nominal, I think was your language, but it doesn't look like you compared the shadow impacts to the as of right. Am I right on that?
Mr. Chair, that is a good question. I think we did do that iteration way back when. I apologize, I didn't include that with your 200-page submission package. So we could have done that, and probably would have shown, yes, a minor change in the extent of the shadows. But I think ultimately in the summer, like I said, which is prime time for when people are outdoors enjoying their amenity space, you'll see on the shadow analysis that it barely extends across our property line, save and except until you get to late in the evening, that's past 6 o'clock.
All right, thank you for that. You addressed my question, and I believe Mr. McCall addressed my question about the pillar and the visibility triangle. There were some comments made by one of the residents about a landscape buffer. Can you comment on that?
Fair enough, and that was a good comment as well. I apologize, I forgot to mention that. What we're providing is, again, in accordance with the minimum bylaw requirements. If we can try to, through the site plan, try to provide more landscaping through that area, we'll definitely try. But as you can tell, you can appreciate it is a very narrow site, and between the required parking and building envelope, there's only so much room left, but we are meeting sort of the minimum requirements, and there will be a board fence there. If we can provide more large stature, if we can provide trees, that will be something ideal, more columnar trees that would sort of grow straight up as opposed to out. We'll certainly look at that through the landscape plan process.
Thank you. And there's some comments about building articulation and how that can address the massing. Again, I think you said you've made efforts to address that, and I think can you also commit to looking at that with staff through site plan? That's really a site plan issue, in my opinion.
I agree, but for sure, we again appreciate this is the design in itself. The site is narrow. Whether it's a 6-story building or it's a 10-story building, we're going to have challenges here on trying to provide housing on this narrow block, and to do this articulation and all that. I think that will be challenging from a design perspective. Well, certainly, I can agree. We'll discuss that with staff, but I think we've come up with a design personally that is. That does meet sort of the city's urban design guidelines and manual. And like I said earlier, staff, all indications in discussions I've had with staff to date have said they really actually like the design of the building. So.
Okay, but we wouldn't tie down the design through this process. That's got to be.
Hope not.
Pardon me?
Hope not, but we're always open and willing to work with the site plan review committee, and Janine can attest to that.
Thank you. Okay, and then in terms of ground floor commercial, that's what's proposed, is that right?
Yes, it is, but there is, again, it's not a requirement, but it is the intent is to have commercial to animate that streetscape. At a minimum, there will be, residential. There could be residential dwellings in some of them, but again, it's not a requirement to have mixed use in this zone. But I think our client has intentions on providing. They've got leads on some boutique type of uses that they like to put in here. So our client's intent is definitely to lease this for commercial purposes.
Is that something your client is willing to commit to through conditioning?
I think it's something that we can consider. I think if it means support of the other variances, then I'm sure they could go that direction and be amenable to that.
All right. You indicated that this was intended to be a rental property. Would your client commit to entering into some sort of agreement securing it as rental for a period of time?
Again, that without conferring with my client, I would probably have to defer to my client who is on the line, and maybe he can answer those particular questions. I don't want to, with respect, I don't want to bind him to something that he'll kick me under the table for later. So I know Stephen Litt is on the call. Maybe he can answer that question.
Give me 5 minutes, folks. I'm dealing with a baby on my end here. Sorry. Appreciate the.
Right, those are my questions. Hopefully those, Mr. Litt can circle back on that. And I have some detailed comments on the application, which I will reserve, Mr. Chair. I would like to put them on the record at some point. But I am also very much in support of the application. I do not think that this is a rezoning. Again, we're talking about varying specific parameters or performance standards and a handful of them, not even. A rezoning is really intended for a situation where you're overhauling the use of the property. This is perfectly within the realm of a minor variance in my submission. And it meets the 4-part test, and impacts have been addressed. But again, I'll just leave it at that for now. Thank you.
Okay. Greg?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Staff just wanted to take an opportunity to provide some clarity on some of the points that the applicant brought up. So it's staff's position that obviously, and as noted in the staff report, the application does not meet the intent of the zoning bylaw, nor is it minor, and that rather the appropriate avenue would be the zoning bylaw amendment. The zoning bylaw amendment, it's a more meaningful process where there's two-way dialogue, and it's meaningful two-way dialogue with the public. And there's opportunities for the public to participate outside of a formal meeting like today's Zoom meeting, where we're able to actually engage with them. In addition to that, staff are able to review a planning justification report that is consistent with provincial policy, regional policy, and city policies as well. We'd also be reviewing the shadow studies and complying with the urban design manual. And that would actually be fully reviewed with the planning justification report. So the applicant did note that they had submitted an application. However, as noted in the staff report, the application for a site plan is not being deemed complete. So that's why that application has not been circulated for staff to fully review at this time.
Scott?
Couple of questions for staff. Craig, as you know, I've been a planner for 35 years and 30 years on the municipal side. So I kind of relate to where you're sitting there. Have you, in your own mind as a staff, looked at this site and talked about, what you'd like to see? Maybe there'd be some underbuilding, underground parking. Maybe there'd be some step backs towards the residential in behind, so it'd go 642 or something like that. Have you put your mind to this?
Through your chair, those are some points that would have been brought up at the pre-submission consultation, where you would include step backs, appropriate setbacks. All that would be reviewed and discussed with the applicant through a zoning bylaw amendment process. In addition, I know today that the applicant and some of the committee members spoke to the site complying with the proposed zoning, and it's important to note that that zoning is simply proposed. It does not apply to the site. The new bylaw is simply just proposed. It's not council endorsed this property. It does not apply this property. And this application is based on meeting the intent of the current zoning, which is zoning bylaw 85-1. In addition to that, the penthouse, that includes gross floor area. So when you have a corridor or you have a washroom, those are uses that are not part of a mechanical penthouse. A mechanical penthouse would include the elevator, mechanical uses. And that bylaw is the same in the new bylaw. It does not say you're allowed to have bathrooms or corridor. It's strictly mechanical uses. So if the applicant's looking to include that, then they would be asking for a building height of 35 meters rather than 19.5 meters. And then they'd also require an additional setback to the permitted 19 meters. So there's a lot of clarifications that need to be addressed, and we noted that in the staff report. So in addition to the building height, there was whether or not the parking would be able to comply. There was the CVT issue. There was the setbacks. So staff's in a position where we note this application is not minor, does not meet the 10th zoning bylaw, and the appropriate avenue to evaluate all these deficiencies would be through zoning bylaw amendment, where meaningful consultation with the applicant and the public could occur.
Just a follow-up question for the staff through you, Mr. Chairman. How many additional variances would be required for what we're seeing here today, Mr. Dumart? And just another quickie, I'm showing a landscape strip at the back of 0.75 meters. That wouldn't allow for planting of tulips. I heard the applicant say trees.
Through the chair, that is correct. The 0.75 landscape strip, that is deficient from what our urban design manual requires, which is a 1.5 meter landscape strip. So as noted in the staff report, there are additional zoning deficiencies, which include the CVT. So that's the size of the CVT, and that the building is actually located within the CVT. There's the building setback that doesn't comply with. There's the building height and the definition of the mechanical penthouse. And then in addition to that, staff aren't supportive of the reduced parking rate, nor are we confident that the parking rate being requested is the actual parking that would be provided on site, as through the site plan process, if approved, additional spaces may be lost due to the design of the building.
Anything else? I'm still in, I still concur.
Mr. Chair, I just want to respond to Mrs. Nieder's comments.
Sure.
So I did hear from my client saying that they would be willing to commit to a 10-year rental and the commercial space. So I just wanted to clarify that for you.
Thanks, Pierre.
Are we waiting for Steve then?
No, I was just going to state what Pierre said. So thank you, Pierre, for that. Appreciate it.
That you would. Okay. All right. I'm still on the same page personally as Jennifer. I still think that this is a committee of application or a committee of adjustment application opposed to a zone change. Personally, myself. And does anyone else have anything further? Mike, do you have any questions?
No, most of my concerns have been addressed on both sides by other committee members. I thought it was or think it's a well put together application and package. I'm like yourself, find myself leaning towards support of the application. My only concern, and this is just a personal thing, is this minor variance wording. I wish there was a better way that we could describe the issue when we're talking about, and it's come up, whether thought 4 feet or 1 meter is minor. When does it become not a minor variance, at 25 feet or 100 feet or not at all? But that's just a personal thing.
A lot of it's subjective.
I like what was presented. I think it's a unique, interesting, attractive design. I'm prepared to support the application.
All right, Jennifer, do you want to, you said you had some additional comments or questions or?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So again, I am still on the same page. It's not a rezoning. Public consultation is not a basis for putting a proposal through one process or another.
Right.
It's the content and extent of the proposal that determines the appropriate route. Public consultation, we heard it's been held. It has been had, and I don't think you get any more statutory public consultation through a rezoning process. There's a statutory public meeting, and it offers the same opportunity as the minor variance hearing for people to come forward, give their comments, and have them be addressed. They can make written submissions. It's the meaningfulness of public consultation is not in any way different in a a committee of adjustment process than it is in a rezoning process, in my opinion. Based on we've heard it meets the official plan, it meets the density requirements put in the official plan. It's a mixed use area. It's in the official plan as being intended for this level of development. We heard some comments about the PPS and growth plan, and that perhaps you would evaluate this application, this proposal better in terms of PPS and growth plan through rezoning. That's not the case. It should be PPS and growth plan have to be assessed in this context as well. We have to be assured that it is consistent with the PPS and does conform with the growth plan. That's a requirement here as well. And I'm very familiar with both of those documents. They require efficient use of land. That's stated throughout the PPS and growth plan, and the optimization of infrastructure and land as well. Efficient use of land, in my opinion, means using the land, achieving the greatest amount of density you can without having an adverse impact. That's my opinion on what the definition of efficient use of land is. And I think that it does ensure an efficient use of land and optimization of infrastructure. This is provincial direction, and this proposal well achieves provincial direction. I think in terms of the minor variance test, and I take Mr. Kidd's point about what is minor, and I think there is a lot of case law that says it is not a mathematical exercise. It is a question of impact. And I think that we have seen very clearly that the impacts, there are no adverse impacts. They've all been addressed. Overlook has been addressed in numerous ways through the single loaded corridor, no balconies on that side, so on. And, it's a 6-story building would be permitted on this site as of right, which, would still could have a far more adverse impact if, balconies or windows or units were on that side of the building. Shadowing, we've had a professional opinion that it's nominal, and that's based on Mr. Chauvin's analysis and application of general rules. Parking, I think, has been justified. There's a Paradigm supports the application, and it's in a major transit station area. If someone can't get a parking space here, they simply won't rent or buy. That's the general market rule. I think we all know that. In terms of visual impacts of the building itself, we heard Mr. Chauvin indicate that they've articulated the building and in his opinion, they meet the urban design guidelines. That will be further fleshed out through site plan. And I just want to be clear that there is no right to a view through a private property. And as far as I know, there's no policies that protect any particular view shed along this area. So I think that, So I'm happy to make a motion to approve the application with the very revision.
I'm going to pause you right there for a minute. I'll pause you
Sure,
there.
but may I just indicate,
You
I
got
want to indicate some conditions that I think we should impose if the
Okay.
committee is
Sure.
trying to approve.
Yes.
One, that there be some sort of agreement entered into to secure rental for a 10-year period or something along those lines. And a certain amount of commercial space, I don't know if it's 50, 40% commercial space must be provided on the ground floor. And I had one more. Bear with me. Oh, that there be a condition that there be no balconies permitted on the north elevation. So thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll pause there.
Okay, Craig.
Yeah, I just wanted to provide some clarification on public engagement because that's something that keeps coming up. So this application would have been circulated 30 meters, whereas zoning bylaw amendment would have been circulated 120 meters. So there are obviously two different notices and two different meetings. The meeting with the public is then held in advance of the stat public meeting, where we can hear comments from the public, and there's an opportunity for the applicant and staff to address those comments, where the comments heard today have not been addressed by the applicant. And then in addition to Ms. Meter's comment regarding commercial, I should note that if commercial is required, the parking rate will further change. So these are things that are typically negotiated and reviewed through a zoning bylaw process where we can ensure that we address and include all zoning deficiencies.
All right. Scott?
In fairness, because it looks like I might be the only one recommending against, I just wanted to put my comments on the record as well. And I really respect Jennifer's comments. There's a number of the comments that she has made that I certainly agree with. But I'm still on the opinion that this particular application does not meet the intent of the zoning, and there will be impacts, which is it appropriate for the development of the property? I've done some extensive research on this particular property and the current zoning. From my opinion, the intent of the zoning was to provide a transitional area between the lower density forms of residential, which are beside, to higher forms of residential, which would be on the west side of King Street. I think what staff are looking for here in terms of the zoning regulations that are in place and what's to come is a 4 to 6 story look. And there's lots of ways of skinning the cat on this particular property as far as putting up with design. I think we're lending ourselves to a situation here, folks, where I think the committee is about to try to add variances to this decision. And I think you should be very careful about that because you're adding variances without notice. And if we don't do that, this application is going to come back to us for further variances 1 or 2 additional times, which I think is abusive process, because I think council needs to be involved in that, and I will stick to that. So those are my comments. Thanks.
All right. You're entitled to your opinion.
Yep.
As everyone else is. Jennifer, did you want to proceed forward then?
I think Mr. Dumar has raised a very good point that I would like to revisit, and that is parking ratios if commercial is required.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if we should hear from Mr. Ryder on that, Mr. Chair, but perhaps I will withdraw that proposed condition and leave it to site plan.
Yeah. All right.
So unless there's anything else to add on that point, I'm happy to make the motion. And in terms of adding variances, again, I think that these are the variances that are being added are technical and result from a difference of opinion in terms of how the zoning bylaw is interpreted. So I'm prepared to make them. I just want to make sure we get it right.
Sure.
So that the applicant does not have to come back.
Yeah, Steve.
Thank you. Through the chair, I wanted to just kind of confirm that, yeah, like if commercial uses are being added, Craig is right at that. The parking requirements to the zoning may change. And he also noted that through some design changes, it may also result in less parking being provided than what is being sought through this application. And then just to provide some clarification from transportation's perspective in terms of the requested parking variance, we are not necessarily look, we don't necessarily disagree or do not support the proposed parking rate. Our concerns were, we were looking for, as was part of the original pre-submission consultation, a specific parking justification report that is a typical request for a parking variance. As you guys have seen, part of our support, our approval for these proposed reduced rates include potential agreements on title for the proposed TDM measures that are being provided, whether or not unbundled parking is being provided, et cetera. And our concerns with that was that the report from Paradigm did not specifically lay out the number of measures being provided and what would be kind of provided as a full package at the end of the design process. So we were looking for more information on that, and that's what my kind of concerns would be with approving this without our conditions in terms of what can be provided as TDM mitigation for the reduced parking spaces.
Pierre?
Yeah, fair enough. As Steve knows, we've also implemented some of these things through site plan. And so we can discuss the implementation of the unbundling and the TDM measures through the site plan approval process, and we'd be happy to do that with you. And
okay. Jennifer?
Certainly, I'm prepared to make a motion, Mr. Chair, if you'd like me to.
Sure.
Application to be approved, allowing a 32 meter in height, provided that a setback of 18 meters, a setback to the northerly lot line of 18 meters is maintained. And Mr. Chauvin, I'm looking to you if I'm getting this right. And that a variance be added to adopt the proposed definition in the new zoning bylaw for driveway visibility triangles, and a permit and an additional variance to permit the encroachment of pillars into the visibility triangle. I think we need to tie that encroachment to plans, Mr. Chauvin. I don't know if those plans are, if you can direct us to what plan that should be tied to.
as per the site plan that has been submitted with your package.
Thank you. And those variances be subject to a condition prohibiting balconies on the north elevation. A condition requiring the applicant to secure rental tenure to the satisfaction of the city for a period of at least 10 years. And to address Mr. Ryder's most recent comments, I think we should put something in there about implementing traffic TDM measures to the satisfaction of staff. And I think we've done something like this before through the site plan process, something like that.
Yeah.
That's my motion.
Pierre?
I think we missed the parking reduction, or is that implied?
Sorry, that was implied. I was only speaking to the variances that were added or revised. I don't think there's any change to the parking variance request.
And I think just to clarify, I think it's a clarification that the penthouse should not be included in the definition of building height. Whether they call it a mechanical or whatever other type of penthouse there is out there, but I think that needs to be clarified to address Mr. Dumart's comments.
In my opinion, through you, Mr. Chair, I think that it's addressed in how the recommendation or the variance is written, 32 meters in height and 35 meters to the mechanical penthouse. That way we don't have to worry about how the interpretation, it's just covered that you get that height, right, subject to the 18-meter setback.
However, the penthouse is 35 meters if you factor that in.
Right, so the variance is written to allow a 10-story building 32 meters in height and 35 meters to mechanical penthouse, provided that setback of 18 meters is provided.
Okay, gotcha. Sorry, I missed that.
Craig?
Yeah, I should just provide some clarity to the committee.
Yeah.
Staff do not include mechanical penthouses. However, what they're proposing is a mechanical penthouse and gross floor area. And then when you're including gross floor area, it contributes to the building height. So what the committee then should be deciding on is a building height of 35 meters rather than 19.5 meters.
What are you putting on the roof, Pierre?
It's a mechanical penthouse with, obviously you need storage space because it's an amenity space up there. So there is gross floor area. I think it's, we're, splitting hairs here. Whether it's worded the way Ms. Meter has defined it or the way Mr. Dumart has, it still achieves the same objective.
Okay. You satisfied with your, yeah, Bob?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Been a lot of discussion on this, and it's not, in one hand, it's not completely clear because it hasn't been built. I think it will be a challenge. Pierre has already admitted that there's going to be some design challenges here. There has been extensive public consultation on this, even though it's only the 30 meters notified for Committee of Adjustment. I think other neighbors got together and talked about this as I think is a good idea. They've had a great opportunity to talk to the applicant, to talk to staff, and now this committee. I believe this is a committee. It falls within the confines of this committee. I don't think it has to go for a zone change. Ms. Meter has put a motion on the floor, and I will second that.
Right, Craig, you had something you want to add quickly?
Yeah, I just want to add something to Ms. Meter's condition for the rental. So zoning bylaws are only permitted to regulate the use of a property, and where structures are located on the property, zoning bylaws cannot regulate the tenure, and therefore a variance to a zoning bylaw cannot determine the tenure of the property, and that's per section 41 of the Planning Act, or 34 of the Planning Act.
So I'm not proposing a variance or a regulation for tenure. I'm proposing an agreement. To be clear, and that those are common. They happen in municipalities all over Ontario. If the city doesn't want that, I mean, we can make the condition to the satisfaction of the city, and if the city doesn't want such an agreement, then they can clear the condition on their own terms.
Craig, okay, you're down. All right, so there's a motion on the floor, second by Bob. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Thanks to everyone. This was a tough one.
Thank you. Yeah, it was.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh.
Okay, next application is A2021-70. It's 124 Walter Street. Planning's recommending, staff's recommending approval with a condition. Is there any plans submitted with this?
Mr. Chairman, it's on the back of the next application again.
Oh, one of those. Okay, thanks, Scott. Okay. All right. Any questions, comments, Scott?
Just a quick question for the applicant. In the report, it talks about balconies being put onto the addition. I don't see any balconies on the plan that I'm looking at. I just want to know where and if the balconies will in fact comply.
Yeah, so the balcony is on the upper northwest corner. of the proposed addition. It'll be on the second floor, and it'll be over top of floor space on the main floor.
Is it going to be recessed, like inside of the building envelope?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Questions, comments, motion? Bob?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. The requested variances are relatively minor. The rest of it, I think, is straightforward. So I will move that this be approved with the one condition that is in the staff report.
Okay, Jennifer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I hate being at odds with staff, and I generally very much support their recommendations. But in this case, again, I do not support this condition. If the application meets the 4-part tests, therefore it is compatible. And I don't think there is any authority for us to impose a condition allowing the director of planning to, after the fact, assess compatibility. They've already acknowledged, staff has already acknowledged that the application meets the 4-part tests, and that's where the analysis should end. So I would modify, I recommend a modification to Mr. McCall's motion to remove the condition.
Bob?
Good point. Thanks, Ms. Meter. But we have in many occasions pushed this down the road a little bit to be subject to review by the director of planning or the site plan review process. I don't think it's an onerous request that elevation drawings be submitted. We've asked for those on many applications over the last couple of years. So to move things along, I will accept that as a friendly amendment that this be approved with no conditions.
All right, second. Mike, all in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next application is A 2021-71. And we have fairly straightforward applications recommending approval without any conditions, no one in opposition. Questions, comments, motion? Oh, Bob, sorry.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'll jump in. Again, fairly straightforward. The variances are very minor, are relatively minor. So I move that this be approved with no conditions.
Second. Mike, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, next application is A 2021-72. We did receive an email this morning. I'm just hang a look here. Oh, it's a letter of support. Okay. Staff's recommending approval without conditions. There's no outside agency comments and no one in opposition. Questions, comments, motion? Scott?
Mr. Chairman, if none of the other committee members have any comments, it's a very minor application with a neighbor who supports, and I'm fully prepared to support the staff recommendation.
Okay, thanks, Scott. Second, Bob?
I'll second that.
All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next application is A 2021-73. Staff's recommending approval without conditions. There is no one in opposition. Anyone have any questions, comments, or motion? Jennifer?
Similar to Mr. Hanna's comments and Mr. McCall's comments on the previous applications, this appears to be a very minor application in my opinion, and I will move that it be approved without conditions.
Great. Hi, Tim. Second? Scott, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Approved. Next application is A 2020-174. One letter of objection. No one registered. We just received an email this morning or yesterday afternoon. Staff's recommending approval without any conditions. It's a fairly straightforward application. Does anyone have any questions, comments? Scott?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had several concerns with this one, and I had asked staff for some comments ahead of time, which they helped a little bit. But for the record, I'm going to ask similar questions. I really wanted to know what this development is going to look like. It's on a very, very narrow lot, and staff have recommended removal of garages in favor of driveways. Do we have a plan, an elevation that shows what this is going to look like?
Yeah, Janine.
For the chair, I don't believe we have an elevation yet, but I will message staff just while you're talking to see if I have any more information from them.
Maybe the applicant knows if we, did you submit an elevation or you're surveying, sorry.
No, we did not.
Okay.
Not in the package.
Yeah.
Okay. So the second and third concern was that this particular application is not subject to REINs. So the applicant after the fact could move this development forward to within 6 meters of the street. So I think if we're going to support this, we should support it with a condition that the setbacks are consistent with the plan attached. And my third concern is I'm concerned because of the narrowness that we're going to have the entire front yard paved with parking. Because right now we're showing cutesy little driveways, I think 3 meters wide, but they're going to be long and I think they're going to be widened. So I want from staff what the bylaw would allow in terms of width, or maybe imposing a condition that the driveways be as per the drawing. Those are my comments.
I guess that would be a question for Janine.
Thank you. So through the chair, the maximum driveway width would exceed what is shown from what it looks like. So what I would suggest is if you, just to clarify, that you could add the condition to have a maximum width. The maximum width is 5.2 meters according to the zoning bylaw.
That's my concern, Mr. Chairman. If we go to the maximum, we're effectively got 11 of the 15 meter or 14 meters would be driveway. And I just don't think that's going to look very good. So wait for other comments, but I'm prepared to move support with subject to conditions.
Okay. Anyone have anything else? Bob, did you have your hand up? You're muted.
Sorry about that.
That's all right.
Just one little quick question to the applicant. Are you planning a future severance on these semis at some point?
Yes.
Okay.
You want to get the foundations poured first, I would think.
Yeah, that's why the variances have been asked for, to sort of to reflect actually the future drive or the future lot width. So
Right.
right.
Yeah. Yes. Okay, Scott, did you have something further then?
Yeah, I like intensification. I'm just worried about what the final look of this is going to be like. So I'm prepared to move support of the variances for the lot widths, subject to two conditions. One, that the setback of the semi is consistent with the drawing attached to the application, and the driveway widths are also consistent with the driveway attached to the application.
All right. Okay. Second. Jennifer, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, next application is A 2021-75. Then staff's recommending approval without conditions. And no outside agency comments. Does anyone have any questions, comments, or motion? Bob?
Yes, Mr. Chair, this is very straightforward. There's no conditions, there's no objections. So I move that this be approved.
Okay, second. Jennifer, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, next application is A 2021-76. Staff's recommending approval with some conditions. I just want to bring your attention again to number 3. At best, it should be that they've submitted for a building permit, not obtained the building permit. So that staff will be able to properly clear the conditions on this file. Okay, any questions or comments? Scott?
No, Mr. Chairman, if nobody has any comments, I had the similar question on condition 3 that you did, and I think site plan approval makes sense in this one because there will be some changes that staff are looking for to reduce the driveway widths, etc. We have approved other applications for 3 units with 2 cars in the driveway. So I think that this application makes sense, and I'm prepared to move the application subject to the 4 conditions with condition 3 being modified.
Great, second. Bob, all in favor? Carried, thank you. All right, next application is B 2021-36. Now into the severances. No one in opposition. Staff's recommending approval with a number of conditions. Does anyone have any questions or comments or a motion? Bob?
Yes, Mr. Chair, just a quick question. I noticed that there's a region advisory from the airport vicinity. I don't know whether we need to include that. It's an advisory only, and I'm sure the applicant will know that. So unless there's more information on that I'm not aware of, this seems fairly straightforward. So I move that this be approved with the 8 conditions.
Okay, second.
Sorry, slow down. My apologies. I just don't see the applicant in the call here. I just want to make sure that they are addressed. Give me 1 second. Kristen was having issues. Yep. My apologies. Kristen was having.
No, I didn't catch that either, Diane. Sorry.
That's okay. I just want to make sure that they're in agreement. Zoom is not being kind. Kristen has not been able to get them to move over.
Thank you, Diana. Mr. Chair, the applicant has now moved over.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks. Okay, there's a motion for approval. Second. Scott, all in favor?
Sorry, I apologize.
Yep.
The applicant,
That's all right, Diane, don't worry.
the applicant had a question previously. I'm sorry, I don't know how to say your name. You were hoping to ask a question a little bit earlier.
Sure.
Tyler, are you there?
Hello?
Hello?
Yes. Did you have a question?
Sorry that I was just having problem with my microphone. Can I wanted to know again what Can hear that. What are you guys saying?
Your application's been approved in accordance with staff's report, which has 8 conditions.
Also, is approved with 8 conditions?
Yes, yes.
Do I want to know which condition are?
You didn't get a copy of staff's report?
Staff's report?
The staff report, yes. You haven't seen that?
No.
Oh, okay. Conditions are that you have to have your taxes paid. You have to pay parkland dedication in the amount of $5,861.32.
Mhm.
You have to provide digital files of CAD drawings for your surveys. You need to make a financial arrangement to satisfaction of the city's engineering for the installation of any new service connections.
Yeah, I did that.
Yeah, these are all standard. They're all standard conditions.
Standard condition. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. There's
No problem.
nothing. There's nothing non-standard here.
I'm gonna do those, all of them. No problem.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Sorry for the.
No, that's all right. No problem. Thanks.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye. All right. Next application is B 2021-37. Support, opposition. We have one person registered, which is the applicant. Staff's recommending approval with 11 conditions. And the applicant had sent through some plans that we received this morning. The survey, I believe it was. And does anyone have any questions or comments? Scott?
I just had a quick question for staff. The region is recommending I think it says widening, and I read the report again, and it's 3 meters. I like the way the house is sited. I think it's wonderfully matching the line of occupation with the other homes, but I just want to make sure the widening is not going to force the house to go back.
Through the chair, there is a zoning regulation that indicates that when the widening is taken, you can still take the measurement off of the pre-widening.
Thank you.
So it won't affect it.
Thank you. Perfect.
Great. Yes, Ken? You're muted. Ken, you're muted.
Sorry.
There
can
you go.
Hear me now?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yes.
so with that road widening, I think I'd prefer to move the house back. Now that that's a criteria. Because I'd prefer to have a longer driveway for more parking.
Scott?
If I can help, Mr. Chairman, I think you're still going to have about 7.5 meters of driveway, so you're going to be able to park 2 cars for sure without going on the widened portion. And I think the city is going to require you through Reams to be within a couple meters of the surrounding homes, I hope. So I was just concerned that you would have enough room, but I'm looking at it again and I think there's going to be 7 meters. So.
Yeah, but I'd prefer to have 2 parking in tandem, which would be minimum 10 to 11 meters. But I don't want to have to go for a minor variance. Right, and then this will set precedents, and then they'll keep all the houses closer to the road. I think it would be better, especially if they're going to be expanding this road, for the houses to be further back than closer to the road.
I think a lot of the houses are already established, are they not?
Yeah, but I think people are going to start doing the same thing that we're proposing once they see what happens. They all have similar sized lots.
Right.
And then we'd set the precedents and everybody would have to move up to our setback.
Scott?
I think it'd be better.
Sharon, if I can help here to kind of close off the conversation, that's a discussion you're going to have with city staff, I believe, because you're going to have to comply with the setback requirements to the bylaw. And if you can move it back a meter or 2, then and they allow it, then that's not something we have to worry about. But okay.
Okay.
And then I also have an issue. sorry.
Yep, sorry. Go, Ken.
I have an issue with the environmental noise study as well.
It's a standard condition.
Well, I noticed on the other applications going forward, it's noise clauses, but for some reason mine has to have a noise study. Can we not just do a noise clause? That's pretty standard. And duct sizes for AC would be standard as well.
Well, that's something that's been asked by specifically by the region, correct? So it's that's what they've asked for. That's what's in the recommendation. And I don't believe that the region are online or available on this meeting. So if you want to address that, I don't think there's anyone here that's able to properly address it for you. So it's either accept it or defer, I guess, so we can get feedback from the region on that.
That's the only option. The city doesn't have authority, or the region has the ultimate authority.
It's a regional issue. It's not a city issue.
Okay, just leave as is then.
Yeah, okay, Ken. Unfortunately, it's not an unusual clause. Like,
No, I know.
I've chaired this.
noticed
I've
on the
chaired
other-
this for 19 years, and I see it a lot. So it's coming from the region.
So I
Okay.
can approach the region then and argue with them?
It's going to be in the decision,
Oh,
right? If you want the decision today.
yeah, no, I need the decision today.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Garrett.
Through you, Mr. Chair, may I suggest if the committee would like to address this today and still issue the decision, it is possible to amend condition 11, and you could add a provision to say, or other arrangements as satisfactory to the region of Waterloo. That way, if the applicant is able to work with the region of Waterloo for an alternative solution, we would still be able to clear that condition.
Great idea, Garrett.
Thank you.
Yeah. So there's a friendly amendment on the table from city staff to condition 11, which is a good idea, and that satisfies Ken's concern and moves us forward. So is there anything else or a motion? Bob.
Yes, yes, Mr. Chair, and thanks very much to Garrett for that clarification. That was a great compromise. So with that, I will move that this be approved with the 11 conditions as amended.
Second?
I'll second.
Mike, all in favor? Carried. There you go, Ken. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, next application is B 2021-38. And there is some regional conditions that if this is considered that need to get picked up. And I think unless I can be told otherwise, that the parkland dedication should probably have the hard number put into it, which is $4,485. And just to clean up on 8C, for the preservation, instead of the wording for the life, the development, it should just say in perpetuity. We'll just clean that wording up there a little bit as well in 8C. And I don't know if we had any plans or elevations. I don't remember seeing any. So what we'll do is on this one is there was some members or some people in opposition. So what we'll do is the registered opposition, we'll hear from the opposition first. And once again, if you didn't hear this from before, if we've already heard the comment, we don't need to hear it twice. We do pay attention and it is duly noted and recorded. So just for the betterment of the hearing, if you want, you can say, that you're in agreement with what's already been said or add something new. So that being said, I guess we will hear from Diane first. Is Diane there?
Yes, I'm here.
There you go.
Yes, okay. Thank you. Mr. Chair, I'm not sure, I've never been part of this kind of a process before, so hopefully I can have some things. I'm not sure if that's appropriate. Are there questions that can be answered at this time?
Sure, we'll do our best.
As well as comments? Okay.
Yep.
Well, first of all, I don't think this is a minor variance at all. Tearing down an existing structure and putting up two-story duplexes to me is quite a major thing. Just for clarification, I live directly behind said property. Okay. And I guess when I was looking at some of the notes, the Committee of Adjustment meeting, unfinished business agenda, things like that, there seemed to be quite an emphasis placed on future air conditioning systems, noise from the nearby expressway. And I guess I'm confused as to why there would be emphasis on that instead of things like the, negative impacts to the neighborhood, parking issues, things like that, and tearing down a perfectly good building. So I'm just wondering if you could answer that for me.
Janine, you pulled the ticket there.
All right, so through the chair, staff does do evaluation of a number of factors when we make a recommendation to the Committee of Adjustment. Just to clarify, in this case, the applicant is not asking for any minor variances. So that would mean that there's no rules like zoning rules that they're requesting change from. What they are requesting is to take the larger lot and divide it in half. And then they want each of those individual lots to meet the zoning rules. So they're not requesting any variances. So with that, the last page of the report, I think, does have like a footprint of the building. So they show the two buildings. They're proposing two duplexes with internal garages, and then they would have a driveway in front. So they will be able to accommodate the required parking.
All right.
Yeah, so I don't know if there's anything else that you wanted me to add to that, Mr. Chair, or?
Oh, I think that answers it. I think that was a good answer. Thanks.
So is this the direction that the city is taking is to tear down existing structures and put up multiple structures to increase density? Is that what I'm hearing then? Is that a fair assumption?
No, really a fair comment to start with is it's rights of ownership of the property owner. So if someone wants to improve or change the use of their property, and so long as it conforms with bylaws and zoning regulations, then every individual has the right to do that, no different than you would as well. So it's not a matter of the city going out and telling people to do this. It's the owners themselves that want to do it. If that answer makes any sense.
All right, no, I understand that. So the impact to the neighbors and the neighborhood in general, is that taken into consideration at all?
Absolutely, yeah.
All right, so how is it taken into consideration? So as I say, I would have this, two looming structures over my backyard, much closer to my backyard than the current structure that's there. And I mean, even the demolition of a building and the building of the new structures, what about the impacts of those things? How am I being considered in that?
Once again, it's all kind of rights of ownership. Maybe it's the easiest way to describe that. It's no different than if you wanted to add an addition to your house.
Right, okay.
You have the right to do that. So, then there would be construction and there could be demolition to make some changes or whatever.
All right, so again, I guess my question is, how much of an impact does the neighborhood have over something like this versus the right of an owner of the property to build something like this?
Well, there's noise bylaws, there's all kinds of different things like that in place to protect the neighborhood that the city uses. So during the process, if something's out of line, if someone's working late at night or anything like that, there's bylaws in place that you have the use of, or the city has the use of, to help preserve your rights of ownership. So it's a different process than what we're involved with. We just look at the specific things themselves.
So where else could we take this if it's not this committee that would have any say on whether the neighbors or neighborhood in general are against this? Then what would be our next steps that we could take?
Well, if the neighborhood's against this, this is the place, and that's what we're here to hear, but it has to be, but the arguments have, for us, our consideration is what's being asked. So the arguments have to be specifically on what's being asked. It's not things like noise and things like that. So
right.
That's short term. And if there's problems, or if you incur issues during their construction or anything like that, that you don't like, you have the right to phone city bylaw office.
All right. Well, I certainly want to.
I hope so.
I would still like to register my disagreement with this, a very strong disagreement, and speaking with a number of other neighbors, they all are very strongly disagreeing to this, and we feel it's a totally inappropriate use of that space and would totally change the landscape. And a lot of people moved here because it was a nice area, single family detached homes, a nice older mature neighborhood. This certainly would not fit in with that. And that's something I want to strongly stress.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah,
great.
duly noted. Thanks, Diane.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. Next, Paul Saunders. Paul online? No. Peter or Jennifer Chambers? Online?
Yeah, we're online.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, good.
Thank you for allowing us to share our feedback based on the potential plan that's going into place across the street. We are directly across the street from this property. And as Diane noted, but I just want to elaborate a little bit, we moved to this neighborhood specifically based on the maturity, the single family homes, the sprawling wide lots, the consistency in the houses. The entire street is all single story homes, a couple of 1.5 story homes, but there's no 2-story structures. The lots are a generous size. And we moved here based on that. Now we are not against intensification. We have a legal duplex in our basement, and we are quite comfortable that there are other legal duplexes that exist on the street. But all of these duplexes are in keeping with the charm and the other structures in this neighborhood. And we can't see how allowing an unprecedented infill is going to improve the neighborhood. There are other ways to intensify that don't include tearing down, severing a lot, and putting in 2 side-by-side duplexes. The other thing that we have a major concern about is the parking. The street is already very busy. People race down this street, as evidenced by the 40-kilometer sign that the City of Kitchener just installed in the center of the street. Adding more traffic from a small bungalow to 2 duplexes means an intensification from 1 family to 4 families with, I would think, the need for 8 parking spaces. When we put our legal duplex in, we were bound by the rules to have less than 40% of the frontage to expand our driveway. And I can't see how having 7 additional vehicles to the one that's there today is not problematic. The other concern that we have is the impact to the neighboring properties, specifically on either side of the proposed plan. There's an older couple, has a very generous garden in the backyard. The impacts to sunlight, the lack, I think there has to be some trees that need to come down in the back. Those are all incredible concerns that we have. And it's, again, completely unprecedented in this neighborhood to have an infill. There are other multi-unit residential use buildings within our neighborhood. All of them keep the same streetscape and have, where they've been major changes, they've built on the back. They have not changed the setbacks. They have not torn down and rebuilt. That does not exist in this neighborhood. And allowing something like this to go through now will just increase the odds that this continues to happen within this neighborhood, which in my opinion is actually one of the nicest neighborhoods in the city of Kitchener.
And just to add with the elderly neighbors, with the garden, it's not just flowers. They actually grow probably 45% of what they eat. So there's the height of that new unit would actually impact that quite substantially. They're 80 something years old, so they're not tech savvy enough to be here today, but we are speaking up for their rights as far as that. And can somebody explain to me how the driveways are going to work? I mean, we all have very small driveways on our very large lots, and I don't understand how 8 parking spots are going to sit in the front and make our neighborhood look any better.
Okay.
Are there drawings available of what is being?
All we've seen there, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong, is a site plan. That's all that's in the package, which was, going to be part of my thing at the end of this. Is I think we really should have seen elevations and drawings with this submission. So in any event, is there anything else?
Yeah, I think just really to underscore, again, we're not against intensification. It's really about keeping the look and the feel of the street and the rest of the neighborhood.
Right. Okay. Great. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Next applicant is who's the next one here? Is it Michael or Michelle? Not there.
It doesn't look like Michael is here.
Michael, okay. Amanda? Amanda?
Hi.
There we go.
Here I am. Thanks.
Hi, Amanda.
So in the spirit of not wanting to repeat what Jennifer has said, because I agree with everything she has said.
Yeah.
I just want to reiterate, this is a devastating possibility to the neighborhood. We stand united in asking that they please consider just duplexing the existing structure rather than going forth with something that will completely change the neighborhood. Now, we have the unique position of being directly across the street from this existing dwelling, and we have a 9x5 bay window, which is one of the reasons we bought the house. I work in here, my daughter studies in here. Like many families, we spend our evenings in here, and the blinds are open all the time. So right now, one family can see directly into our living room, and we can see into theirs in the months where the leaves are not there. And if this goes forth, potentially 20 people can see what we're doing for much of the day. And that's such a major impact to our privacy that it just devastates me. We would never have purchased the home if that had been a possibility, and we didn't understand that to be a possibility in this neighborhood. And in addition to the privacy concerns, I have concerns for safety. I know the parking has been touched on, but just to elaborate, if those cars are being shuffled around right across the street, I have pets. I have a child to protect, a child who walks to school. This is a huge safety impact and not part of the neighborhood layout that I thought that I was buying into. So those are my thoughts in addition to the submission that I sent last night.
Right, yes, and we have that. Thank you, Amanda. Thank you. Christopher? Christopher?
Hello?
Hello. Hi.
Hi. Hi, good morning.
Good morning. Good afternoon
Or is it
now.
afternoon now? Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I just, I don't want to repeat what my neighbors' concerns have already been stated. I mean, the traffic volume and the safety and the the parking concerns are all been stated and are valid. One of my major concerns or disappointments is that, again, we purchased in this neighborhood. We like the look of the neighborhood, and I think something like this is very devastating to the streetscape of what's been here for 60 plus years. And my neighbors have had some very good suggestions on how I think we can accommodate by not touching the existing structure, but actually, duplexing what's there and can accommodate an additional residence without completely disturbing and ruining our streetscape.
Okay. Great. Thanks, Christopher.
Thank you.
Allison?
Yes, hi. I think my concerns have been expressed very well with my neighbors, so thank you very much.
Okay, great. Great. Thanks for hanging in there. That's everyone that was registered in opposition. And now I'll do is I'll turn the floor over to my colleagues. Do they have any questions or comments? Bob?
Yes, Mr. Chair, a question for staff. And it was referred to, and it's the last page of the staff report, which is a sketch for the severance, and it shows the two buildings, but I have a question regarding parking, because the drawing I'm looking at right now has one garage on each of the two buildings. And where are the other, well, one would be 1, 2, 3, 4. Where are the other 4 cars going to be parked?
Yeah, Janine, sorry. I'm sorry. Habit.
You know what? It happens a lot.
Old habits.
And
yeah.
our names get mixed up. So
Yeah.
through the chair, in terms of parking, the required parking would be in the garage and then in tandem. So when you have a duplex dwelling, you can have your legal parking spots in tandem, and that would be what could potentially happen here. One of the things the committee may want to consider if driveway width is a concern is similar to one of the previous applications. You might want to restrict, they don't show it on the plan, but you could put in a condition relative to the width of the driveway potentially, if you want to maintain a certain amount of landscape out front versus the width of the driveway.
Great, good idea. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, further question. I've been on this committee a while, and we have seen a number of applications where duplexing is happening, people converting garages and stuff, and parking in tandem has always been a minor variance. Am I missing something here? I guess not. Okay. Anyway.
No. That's a good point. I think it has. Janine?
Just let me check the bylaw for you. Thank you for flagging that.
Yeah, that's all right. Yeah, no, I think it has been actually, Bob, now that you mention it.
Well, while Janine is looking at that, yes, I recall a whole bunch of them over in Lower Doon where houses were being converted into accommodations for students. And whenever we have a duplex, parking is an issue and a minor variance is required to have cars parked in tandem.
Right. Yeah.
So, well, there's a problem there, but even more so, Mr. Chair, I always evaluate or take into consideration, and it is in the Planning Act, the impact on a neighborhood. And as far as I'm concerned, the scale and massing of this proposal is totally incompatible with the existing streetscape. And with that note, Mr. Chair, I will not be supporting this application.
Scott?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I commend Bob for coming out first. I actually had some questions for staff because being familiar with the Planning Act over 35 years, I know some of the tests under 5124 are the size and shape of lots, and we have lots along this street that are all capable of doing exactly the same thing. And I went back to the city's official plan, and in the intensification, like severance policies, I mean, the character of the area is one of the primary tests. And if you approve this, folks, we're gonna set a feeding frenzy for the real estate community that's going to completely annihilate the character of this area. So unless staff can convince me that the tests under the official plan are there, and section 5124, those two tests, which are C and F, I think they're not met. I will not be supporting this application either.
Anyone else? Jennifer?
Only to say I share the concerns expressed by Mr. Hanna and Mr. McCall, and thank them for their comments. And just going further to Mr. Hanna's point, the policies of the official plan specifically that I think he was referring to are policy 17E 20EB, which specifically talks about the proposed lots reflect the general scale and character of the established development pattern of surrounding lands by taking into consideration lot frontages, areas, and configuration. I think I can say that the application does maintain the type of building, I mean, single detached, and the setbacks are in keeping with the adjacent properties. But when I look at the broader neighborhood, I'm seeing a very consistent lot size and frontage, and I am not seeing the proposed lot size and frontage reflected elsewhere. So I do share the concerns about the precedents that this could set, and whether or not it is in fact in keeping with the character of the neighborhood. So I'm inclined to support the positions of my fellow members and not approve this application.
All right. Daryl, did you want to say something?
Well, I just wanted to say that we were going to use RIANs as a guidelines to help us construct these homes so they fit perfectly into the neighborhood. They're not going to be overly big in size. As far as the parking is concerned, the bylaw, I think, gives us the guideline as well, how big we can go with the driveways, and the driveways are going to be smaller than the maximum width. I'm not sure what else to say. It's just that we are within the zoning and just trying to help the city intensify. That's all.
Okay, good. Thank you. Let's see the direction this is going in. Does anyone have anything further to add, or do you want to make a motion? Bob?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I'd like to thank my colleagues for their input. And I still consider the scale and massing of the proposal is incompatible, totally incompatible with the existing neighborhood. So I will put on the floor a motion that this consent application be refused.
Second. Scott, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next application is why is this back echoing? Is A202177, A202178. There's Regents conditions that need to be inserted into this. Hang on a second, my thing all of a sudden is back up for some reason. Okay, the parkland definition should probably be stated at $4,050.40. I know Scott was going to be bringing that up, and beat you to it.
And if you didn't do it and he didn't do it, Mr. Chair, I'd do it.
Yeah, I know. And once again, to clean the wording up for the life of the development, it should be using the word in perpetuity, which means it goes on forever. So, okay, anyone have any questions or comments? Scott.
Mr. Chairman, you're a wonderful chair, and you're meeting me or beating me to all my punch here. But I was going to suggest another condition that the existing dwelling be demolished. If we don't, we could be creating lots with the existing house on it, and that wouldn't be good either. Unlike the other application we just heard, there are a variety of lot sizes in this area, and it looks like Heritage doesn't have any concerns with the existing dwelling being how old it is. So removing that for 2 new dwellings seems to make a lot of sense to me.
Okay. All right, so you want to add a, hang on a second. There. I don't know. I'm getting feedback all of a sudden on my mic. Anyways, is that a motion?
Yeah, I'm prepared to move the application, Mr. Chairman, if the other committee members don't have any other conditions, subject to adding the regional fee, inserting the parkland dedication amount, and adding a condition that the existing dwelling be demolished. And you had some wording, I think, about removing the.
Yeah, just remove the word for the life, the development, and put in perpetuity.
Correct. That's under 8C.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, Bob?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I will second Mr. Hannah's motion. I think it's a great use of land. I think it's a great opportunity for people, so I will second that motion.
Okay, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. All right, last application.
Thank goodness.
The consent application B 2021-40, B 2021-41, and then there's 2 minor variance applications. One is A 2021-79, and the other is A 2021-80. No one in opposition. And staff's done a great job preparing this. And any questions or comments?
Uh-oh. Did we lose Denny?
I'm here.
Well, anyway, while we're getting to that, I have a question for staff, and that the parkland dedication will be taken at the site plan stage. Do I understand that correctly?
For you, Mr. Chair, yes, through a future site planning application, parkland would be collected.
Well, Mr. Chair, that satisfies my concern. I have great faith in the site plan committee, and so I will move that this be approved with
I do have
the
a comment.
Question from the applicant.
Yeah, so the condition 1 with the R plan needed, these already have separate pins, and the descriptions already on them by R plan. So you would essentially be copying the exact same thing for no reason.
Through the chair, as a suggestion, if you can add if required, and then once I see the documentation, whether or not the R plan, so there is a possibility that I'd be able to waive that condition. I just need to see what legal descriptions are on the property prior to being able to issue a certificate of consent. So just insert if required, and we can address that condition at a later date.
Sure. How's that?
Yeah.
Okay. So there's an amendment, Bob. So there's a motion with an amendment. Second. Jennifer, all in favor? Carried.
Move to adjourn.
Move to adjourn. That was Bob.
Yeah.
Second by Mike, and all in favor? Carried. Thank you, everyone.
Good job, everyone. Well done. Thanks to staff. This was a